सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Continuing where we left off last time. Bodhasara class, so that people can adjust their expectations if they were expecting anything different. So, Brahma Yajna Nirnayaha. What is Brahma Yajna? We saw, according to him, metaphorically, the author, Narahari. And what does he say is Brahma Yajna? Brahma Yajna is basically following a path of values and attitudes, values, etc., that have a special bearing for living the life of a jnani. And if one is not yet a jnani, but wants to be is in fact a jnani wannabe, then also these attitudes and values have great pertinence in the life. So we saw five fingers of one hand have to do with all the things that are called yama, and then the other five fingers have to do with niyama. And we saw what those yama niyama are, and we have looked at that. And then he sums up this section and says something which is very nice. So I think we saw the second hand also. Shauchaha santoshaha. Oh, maybe we haven't seen all of it. We've spent the whole time on Santosha. Yes. So this one we have to see. Two other values we have to see before we conclude. Okay. So let me recite that verse and then we'll remember where we are. शौचः सन्तोषस्वाध्यायः तप ईश्वरधारणा इति पञ्चाङ्गुलिमयः नियमो नाम सत्करः. So santosha we saw cheerfulness, and then the next one is swadhyaya. Three more are there: swadhyaya, tapaha, tapas, and ishvaradharana. Swadhyaya traditionally means the study of one's own Veda. It's a very interesting thing because the study of one's own Veda means what? I'm already, the how do I know I have to study the Veda? The Veda itself says Swadhyaya Adhyetavyaha. May one study one's own Veda. Now, this is a very interesting situation. Unless I study the Veda, I don't know I have to study the Veda. And then once I study the Veda, then this is a useless injunction because I'm already studying the Veda. It's redundant. Is it really? Well, no, because since the achara, since everything, the way of life is passed on from parents to children, there is something called vriddha vyavahara, the how the elders behave. So you see the elders studying the Veda, and you also study the Veda, and then you come across the injunction swadhyayah adhyetavyah, may one study the Veda. And then you say, aha, okay, good, I'm already doing it. So it feels nice to encounter that this is what needs to be done and I'm already doing it. Now, so this is traditionally swadhyaya, and that is recommended because this is one way we don't lose track of the lifestyle and the vision. So this is a form of, for the Vedantin, the study of the Veda means the study of the Upanishads, etc. And that is a form of, what is that called? Brahma Abhyasa. It is living and assimilating the knowledge of oneself as Brahman. Then for the Jnani wannabe, It is assimilating the lifestyle called Karma Yoga, which is talked about in the first portion of the Veda. How to be and how to grow emotionally. All these things are important because the Veda is like a mother who reparents you and washes away all pain, sorrows, and different difficulties, etc., by turning one into a devotee. By turning one into a devotee makes this all go away. And so therefore what this Swadhyaya in the olden times, ancient times, Swadhyaya means the what one the this being close to the Veda, being close to the spiritual texts that that fulfill one and that nurture one. This is extremely important because otherwise one is all over the place. And Swadhyaya also means doing what the Veda is recommending one to do. Because if you don't do what you're supposed to do, what will you do? Naturally, you'll do what you're not supposed to do. So therefore, this is to keep one on track. And so extrapolating from that, especially for people who are studying Vedanta, the best way to look at it is to say that Swadhyaya means being with Karma Yoga and Jnanam. So this is extremely important because otherwise what happens is that one the nascent understanding of I am Brahman, which is being generated because of the what is it called the constant removal of Atma Ajnanam, the removal of all kinds of wrong identifications with pain, sorrows, and all kinds of finitude. It's being removed. And as these things are being removed, then slowly one is getting acquainted with the I that is naturally free, naturally whole, naturally without a second, and complete and joyous. So, as that nascent understanding dawns, I mean, it was already there, but there was a lot of things in the way. So, as the clutter is pushed aside by the study of the Upanishads and the nature of the I is reaffirmed to be what you already suspected to be whole, free, limitless. And so, as that understanding is happening, then, at that time, it's a very precarious time. It's a vulnerable time because that understanding can be overridden by habitual orientations. Orientations means old habits, samskaras. What's the meaning of samskaras? Samskar or the other from the past. And so, and what does that do? That basically, inhibits the assimilation. Think of how old the samskaras are. Think of how old the vasanas are. Think of how old these habits are. These deeply entrenched habits of smallness, behaviors of which have nothing to do with the truth of who you are. Old behaviors, tired behaviors, sad behaviors, behaviors that keep on reinstating, as it were, the finitude that one is wanting to get away from. Behaviors that come in the way of reclaiming oneself as exactly as how the Shastra sees one. Reclaiming that biography and replacing it with replacing that with the replacing the biography of the life story given by the Upanishads. So that is the biography. It tells you who you are. It tells you the story of who you are. And that's a much better biography than the autobiography written by the Jiva. Sad, mad, you know. And what will it be called? Autobiography of a bhogi. There is one autobiography of a yogi. This is no yogi here. Autobiography of a bhogi. Chapter 1, longing. Chapter 2, no belonging. Chapter 3, same old, same old. And then chapter 4, insecurity. Chapter 5, nobody loves me. Chapter 6, nobody validates me. Chapter 7, conclusion, no, to be continued. And that same autobiography is picked up in the next life. Maybe the chapter arrangement will be a little different, but this is what it is. So, this story to which one is extremely attached, one is completely identified with the story, that autobiography, that book has to be pried from one's hands. And then the Upanishad has to be replaced. That book has to be replaced by the Upanishad, by the truth of who one is. And there is, chapter 1 to chapter to the end is glory. It's glory, glory, glory all the way. You are Ishvara, that is the concluding chapter. Through various prakriyas, through various methodologies of removing this identification, all these wrong identifications, and then replacing those identifications with the understanding that one is Brahman. So this is a process, and one has to give oneself the time for this transformation to occur. Time means what? The continued exposure to Vedanta. Give Vedanta the time for it to make this transformation complete. Because after all, the samskaras are very old. How old are they? They are very, 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 very old. And so, therefore, the strength of the samskaras is slowly eroded by the book called the Upanishad, by the message of the Upanishads. And so, therefore, Swadhyaya for the Vedantin means being in touch with the teachings. And that is extremely important because otherwise what happens is that if the committed and continuous exposure is not there, two things can happen. Many things can happen, but we are going to discuss two things. One is that there is a feeling of complacency, and this complacency means, yeah, I know this, I know this joke, I know this message, I know what is going to be said now, I know this Upanishad, I know this, I know. And that complacency or taking the things for granted, that is something that must be looked out. One has to look out for that, because otherwise what happens is that there is, even if one is in touch and attending the classes, then there is that complacency makes the knowledge and certainly especially certain nuances where you can where one can be transformed, makes that more elusive. The jiva kind of becomes jaded, already jaded, but also jaded in relation to the knowledge, and then starts to, and so refuses to be surprised. This knowledge is all about wonder, and wonder cannot happen without surprise. So, because it is wondrous. Why? Because incessantly we can talk about ourselves. That's why this knowledge is wondrous. And no matter how much one talks about oneself, one is never tired. And that's why it is wondrous. And it is also wondrous because the one who talks about the knowledge, the teacher, is always seeing new things while teaching, while talking. And it is a wonder because the student is also seeing new things while listening. That's what, because the knowledge is alive, because the I is alive, the I, which is the subject matter of this knowledge, is alive. So, therefore, it is a constant wonder. There is a discovery, and then there are so many nuances. Yes, you've heard the same things many times, but then it sits a little deeper. It goes into, and certain cobwebs are, vanished in each sitting. And so that wonder, demeanor of constant wonder is what is one comes prepared with to study. This is Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is not a chore. Oh, I have to study the Veda, I have to, I have to listen to the class, and that's what everybody says, and that's what the Upanishad says. Shravanam must be done. Okay, Kathopanishad, been there, done that. Kenopanishad, been there, done that. And then what? Mundakopanishad, oh, that's tomorrow. So why worry about it now? And then what? Ishavasya Upanishad, yeah, no, I haven't studied it, but have seen some quotations. Oh, well and good. Check that, check, done, finished. Okay, over. One is, that same jaded jivatvam, that same jaded feeling from the regular life, one is bringing into this setting, which is supposed to be totally transformative. Even if you have studied the Kathopanishad, there are some things that strike one differently, because that time when you studied, where were you? Who were you? You're a completely different being now. And so when you study this now, there are many things. And then you yourself are surprised. How come I didn't see it then? Preparedness has come now. More preparedness has come now. So that constant ability to be surprised, that constant ability to be in a state of freshness and wonder is really what we bring to Swadhyaya. If that is not there, then it is replaced. That wonder is replaced by this jaded feeling of, I know this, I have studied this, there is nothing more to know. And that even though it may masquerade like this, there's nothing more to know. What you're really telling yourself is that no matter who, even if Indra or Brahmaji comes and teaches, I will not be transformed. Why? Because in life I'm jaded, and I'm bringing that same hopelessness here to this setting. That same disillusionment, disenchantment, and hopelessness is a patina, in terms of one's attitudes. And so, how can even the best teacher transform? Even the best book, the best teacher, the best kind of Shravanam, it won't happen. Nothing will happen. And so that is one of the pitfalls of this, if the Swadhyaya is not understood and done properly. And the second pitfall is just getting derailed altogether. So in the first instance, the person is coming to this the classes, attending, and is part of the community, attending the classes, etc., etc. But there is no transformation possible. As the same author says in the beginning of this text, in the beginning, that is called Shishya Viveka, how to make oneself a student. There he says that, the Shishya must be like a lotus, and the Shastra is like the sunlight, exposed to which the lotus blossoms. In the presence of the Shastra sun, the lotus blossoms. And that is how the student must be. And then he goes on in this section to say, mind you, the sun will only cause the real lotus to bloom, not a wooden lotus. If there is a wooden lotus bud, hidden like a decoy in the waters, all nicely painted pink and everything with green lily pads, it's also floating. The others are also floating, except this is made of wood. So, no matter how bright the sun, and even if we get some other suns from outside this galaxy or different parts of the galaxy, you get a new sun and it shines even brighter than the sun that we have. Will the wooden lotus open? No. The wooden lotus, the sun does not have the power to open the wooden lotus, because the lotus simply is made of wood. And so the wooden lotus translates is equal to wooden student. So jaded, faded, unable to be opened. And, I know this, I know that, and this will not transform me. Disillusioned, sad student. This is, disillusioned student, kind of like a, what is that, just bobbing up and down, going through the motions, pretending to be the real lotus, but while not being the real lotus. Then, after having talked about the wooden lotus, then he asked the question: Will the sun be able to? Will the sun be able to make the clay lotus blossom? Clay lotus, if you put in the water, what will happen? I mean, unbaked. Okay, we are not talking of the clay lotus that has been in the kiln. You just fashion the lotus out of some mud so, found on the roadside, and then you take it to the lake and put it there. What will happen? It will immediately become waterlogged. Waterlogged. And so that is the state of the, that is like even worse, where the disenchantment has completely set in. And then what? Then he also gives the example of a stone lotus. Can the sun blossom the stone lotus, make the stone lotus bloom? Of course, the answer is no. Needless to say, the answer is not at all. Cannot do this. Why? Primarily because the stone lotus is not a fit. The stone lotus does not represent a fit student. Sinks, depressed, unable to allow that lightness of being. And then the wooden lotus rajas, and the stone and the clay lotus tamas, and the real lotus here is the sattvika, that sattvika understanding, that sattvika demeanor. That is what one needed. And so this is what is he cautions at the end of this section, and ends with a prayer: may all the students be real lotuses, not stone, and not wooden lotuses that bob up and down and get drifted away by the currents of the lake, and then not clay lotuses that get waterlogged and lose their shape. And so the one possibility is to be listening but not be a fitting student. And then the other possibility of no swadhyaya means what? One gets derailed, one loses interest. And this we see time and again. A new text is started, and then, everybody is interested. Oh, this is wonderful. I mean, in fact, the texts just have names. Something is called Saddarshanam, something is called Drigdrishya Viveka, something else is called Advaita Makaranda. In fact, the message is identical. It's all talking about the ABCD of Vedanta: A for Atma, B for Brahman, C for Chit, D for Dharma. I can go on. Okay, and so it's all talking about that, all of them. But somehow, in the mind of the student, something new I want. I don't want that old one. I've already been there, done that, been there, done that. I want something new. And the teachers are very obliging. They say, okay, you want to study this, no problem, we'll study this. And then when one studies this, then what happens is that after a little while, if the mind is not prepared, and if there are some self-sabotaging tendencies, the interest is, the one finds that the interest is waning, and then one finds that the interest is lost altogether. And then one slowly drops out. In the beginning, what? Oh, I can't attend this next class because dot dot dot. I have something going on. I have to be somewhere. This is very important. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to, I have just this one class, maybe two. Okay. After that, I'm back. And then after missing that, what happens is that sometimes the desire to come back is not there, or is so, the mumukshutvam is just very, very, it's like a fire that appears to have died out. So you have to go blow foo foo over the over the embers to see, oh, they are still red, and the ashes of depression, disillusionment, disenchantment, whatever it is, disinterest, have to be blown away, and then the fire can get started again, and then get started enough to put new fuels of jignasa, mumuksha, the desire to study, the desire to, be with this. So the desire to study is there. Otherwise, these two, these are the two problems. And so this, derailment altogether, like a slow, combust, a slow derailment, and then one gets out of the habit of listening, and one gets out of the habit of listening means the other strong habits continue to overpower, or one continues to listen but the person is not there, the body is there, the mind is elsewhere, or the body is there, the mind is criticizing every sentence that it hears. Yeah, this was the same joke from last time, nothing new, and yeah, I've heard this. And in fact, that other teacher teaches better, because these days, there is, what is that called, all everything is online. People you have never even heard about are all online. People you would have never even, this is a great blessing. And then sometimes it's not such a great blessing if one is not prepared. And so one listens, and then one compares, and then this is what is happening, because that, whether when one is in the listening situation, then this is some form, yet another form of distraction. And so swadhyaya means there is a commitment. It's not just enough to open the Veda, if you take the ancient example, to open the book of the Vedas and read. That's not just swadhyaya. There is a commitment to what one is doing. And to find that commitment in the face of calamity, in the face of adversity, in the face of hopelessness, is the greatest gift you can give yourself. So, how to have that commitment, how to cultivate that commitment? Tell yourself, this is today I will attend, especially when it's difficult. Don't say, oh, there are so many classes and it's all so overwhelming. I can't do everything. So therefore, what? I will do nothing. No, this is not all right. So this is just again a form of self sabotage. So tell yourself, this today I will make a sankalpa to attend and listen. For 1 hour I will pay attention. And whatever it is you need to do, prayer, and to gain that ability to put the raga dveshas to sleep while you're listening. Strong preferences, strong prejudices, distractions, and all you put to sleep. Meditation helps. And that also, gives what is called chitta naischalyam. Chitta naischalyam means the ability to focus. An unswerving mind comes as a result of meditation. And then chitta shuddhi, karma yoga, etc., gives a kind of an internal cleansing. So all the difficult pain, sorrows, etc., are just immediately cleaned up, making room for one to just enjoy the studies. And so this is how one cultivates, and this is swadhyaya. Tapaha, we have kind of discussed tapaha, because we already talked about how to cultivate this swadhyaya. Tapaha includes antaranga sadhana. Antaranga sadhanani, like what is antaranga sadhana? Antaranga sadhana means inward practices, such as meditation, contemplation, etc. Inwardly focused practices. And then what else do we have? Bahiranga sadhana, karma yoga, reaching out actions, seva, giving, etc. So both these sadhanas are called tapas here. And so tapas doesn't always mean fasting and all that, although it includes that. But primarily, two kinds of tapas are talked about. One is inward focused, meditation, etc., which gives chitta naischalyam. And then the other one is outward focused, which gives chitta shuddhi. some kind of a clarity. Okay, and so this is tapas. And then what else is there? Ishvara dharana. In India, the word dharana means what the people who are protesting do. Dharana. They staged a dharana on the steps of the capital, on the steps of the parliament in New Delhi. But this dharana is actually a yoga term. The ability to stay with it. That is called dharana. Whatever you're doing, the ability to stay with it, that staying power is called dharana. And the protesters, maybe they say we are going to fast unto death, or maybe they are going to say that until our demands are met, we are not going to move from the steps of the parliament. And so that is why they are staging a dharana. Dharana means they have that perseverance. So perseverance is dharana. So here, dharana means the perseverance, not the. It is very easy to give up. That's not hard at all. So resisting the desire to give up, especially as far as one's studies go, that is dharana. And here, what is the object of the dharana? Ishvara dharana. Ishvara dharana means holding on to Bhagavan. Holding on to Bhagavan. And then, whether you want to hold on to Bhagavan or not, Bhagavan makes sure to create opportunities in your life where you hold on to Bhagavan. Yeah, so many times. Jupiter turns, and then what else turns? This, Saturn. That's why it's the last two words of Saturn is turn, because it keeps turning. So Saturns, Jupiter turns, and then what else? Rahu, Ketu, no good they are, turns. No, but what about all the other planets? They also turn. But then Mars and Mercury, they are small planets, and they finish their revolution in each constellation in 1 month. 30 days, 40 days, they're done and gone. But these are the long fellows. Jupiter, 1 year, sometimes 1 year, 1 month, 2 months. And then Saturn, 2.5 years in each house. In one, in one zodiac sign, 2.5 years. Takes 30 years to complete the whole zodiac. And if you picture him in the Shastra, in the Vedic, understanding, iconography, etc., he is pictured as lame. That's why he's so slow moving. He drags himself from one thing to another. And so Saturn and this Rahu Ketu. Rahu Ketu, they were actually one, but they are two. They are two. Why? Because there is a story when that ocean of the unconscious ocean was churned. The ocean of the unconscious was churned, meaning resolved, and where the raging battle between the devas and the asuras stopped, and they actually cooperated to churn the ocean. Devas and asuras represent the conscious and the unconscious mind, or dharma and adharma, all warring tendencies, etc. This is what it represents. And then, so first all kinds of nonsensical things came out. Then a terrible poison came out, the collective unconscious, which Lord Shiva swallowed. And that is why we celebrate Pradosha. Pradosha means evening. So he swallowed this, and it did not affect him. It just sat in his throat. And then it relieved, it gave the people a little respite from what it is like to not be constantly assailed by the unconscious mind. And that is why we worship Shiva on Pradosha day. It is on the when the 12th, the Dwadashi, the 12th day of either the waxing or the waning moon, and comes along with the 13th day. That is what is called Dwadashi and Trayodashi together when they come, or just a little bit apart. We have this Pradosha ceremony. We thank, we offer our thanks and pray to the Lord to be have this clarity. And so this is, this is the so when the ocean, when the after the poison came, Dhanvantari, uh, the Bhagavan in the form of Vishnu in the form of the healer comes with a pot of nectar. And then, of course, the condition for drinking this is you have to be very, you have to be very sattvic. So all the devas line up, and then what? Vishnu, to distract the asuras, takes the avatara of Mohini, and Mohini means she who deludes, and so she takes the avatara of a nymph, heavenly nymphs. And then she has another pot that just contains some kind of fruit juice or something, not the nectar of immortality. Nectar of immortality means Shastra, okay? So then, and so she just sways her hips. Come along, boys, she tells the asuras, and they all follow her, and they just, they are just distracted by her, and perhaps they drink the fruit juice, we don't know, thinking it to be the nectar. But this one, who was Rahu Ketu combined, this one smells a rat and says, no, 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 I'm not going there. And then, pretends to be a deva, biffs another deva, borrows a crown, and then pretends, wears the crown, and then goes in masquerading as the deva. And then what? And then, along with the devas, he too is served the nectar of immortality. Shastra, represented by the Shastra. And then what? He sips it. And then, of course, since, and then he is ousted from there. He is outed and ousted. And Vishnu's chakra decapitates him because he came under false pretext, masquerading as the Deva. But since he had tasted the nectar of immortality, he will be there forever. But now he is into two. Head is called Rahu, and the rest of the torso, along with the tail, is called Ketu. They are seen as shadow planets, and they encircle the solar system in the form of eclipses. Rahu, eclipse, Ketu, eclipse, like this. These are all eclipses. So they cast a shadow over the sun and over the moon. And sun and moon represents moon represents tranquility of the mind, and the sun represents knowledge and clarity. So they cast an eclipse over and rob one of one's tranquility and also of one's clarity. That is the idea. But temporarily, with Bhagavan's grace, the clarity is gained back, and all this is gained back. The knowledge is gained back, the wisdom is gained back. And so this is Rahu and Ketu. They spend 18 months in one constellation. 18 months. And so all kinds of difficulties are there. And then, so there is Saturn return. 7.5 years of Saturn, too close for comfort. In your house, in your birth house, the house before it, and the house after that. 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 7.5 years of challenges. Rahu represents the unconscious mind. Rahu is, full of what is that, full of all kinds of things that you didn't even know were there. Desire for this or that, wanting this, needing this, all these things. And then Ketu, represents the yearning for liberation. But remember, there used to be, in fact, the unconscious mind and the yearning for liberation are actually should be together, because the more one resolves the unconscious mind, the liberation is, of course, not at all away from oneself, and this is discovered. But here, what is happening? The head has been severed from the body, and so Ketu represents moksha, and Rahu represents the unconscious mind, sinking into the same patterns and depression and all kinds of longings and desires, useless, needless, unwanted desires. And so, therefore, this split is there. Because when we interrogate the longings, I mean, the moksha is not far behind, because the nature of the one who longs is free of longing. Easy enough to say, but very difficult to assimilate because of this Rahu Ketu so called disconnect. It's a very interesting disconnect. The unconscious mind is turned against itself because it doesn't even know that it exists. It is the conscious mind doesn't know that the unconscious exists. And all the reactions, all the knee jerk reactions, the gut level impulsive actions ensue from the unconscious. And then, even if the conscious mind wants clarity, wants freedom from samsara, there is a disconnect with the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind has to be brought along. And then, at least figuratively, the head and the tail have to be put together inside one's psyche. This is so fascinating. For there to be some kind of a unified approach. Otherwise, Rahu is pulling one down and Ketu is trying to take one up. It is very difficult. So the two have to somehow come together. How will it come together? Can you bring them together, especially if you don't know where one is, where the Rahu is, you don't know where the unconscious is, unconscious mind is, how to bring it together? This is where Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. This is where devotion comes into the picture. Ishvara Dharana. Devotion comes into the picture. And that devotion is extremely important, because without that devotion, nothing is, going to happen. The devotion means the ability to understand what? That I do not call any of the shots. I don't call all the shots. Level 1 understanding, level 2 understanding, graduate level. What is that? I don't call any of the shots. It is all there, it is all done, it is all taken care of. This is how it is. And this is what it is. So that means there are many things that will happen that I do not like, I do not approve. And many things that happen which I like, but then it goes away, it is elusive. So I have absolutely no control over the happenings in the life. And therefore, what? I have a reverential attitude to the one who is the Niyamaka, who is the one who controls. Who is the one who controls? Who is the one who allows all the laws to unleash upon my life, including but not limited to the law of karma? That itself is enough. So the law of karma means disappointment and fear, tears, so many things. All this is because of law of karma, over which I have very little control. And so the prayer becomes a no-brainer here. The supplication to Ishvara, God, becomes a no-brainer. And at first the prayer might be deliberate, or the prayer might be utilitarian. But then slowly, the prayer starts to come naturally. First it is forced, and first it is comes from a place of desperation. But then after a while, it becomes more natural. So this is Ishvara Dharana. And then, people say, oh, Ishvara doesn't answer the prayers. How do you say? Well, I have been asking for this one thing for the last 10 years. It has not come true. Perhaps the answer is no. The prayer has been answered. All prayers are answered. The answer perhaps is no, and you are not accepting the answer. Maybe sometimes it is no, sometimes it is not yet. All kinds of desires are there. Somebody says, I want to be the president. of the United States, and then the wherewithal is not there. Whatever it takes to do that is not there, either in terms of personality or karmically also. It's not there. And so then, if one keeps praying for it, it won't happen. That is what it is, because it is not there. This life around, that's not going to happen. Better luck next time, we can say. So it's not going to happen this time around. And so, like this, the coming to a place of acceptance with oneself is a very important qualification for the study of Vedanta. And so that cannot happen without bringing in Ishvara into one's life, without appreciating the laws of the universe for whatever they are. This is how the laws are. This is how everything is. So, appreciating the laws of the universe and allowing oneself to just be, and learning to come to a place of acceptance with what is very difficult, but this is what is needed. This is what can take one out of the rut of this repeated cycle of agony and ecstasy. This is what this is what one is needing. And so Ishvara Dharana means the ability to catch hold of Ishvara, even through desperation. Doesn't matter, because that is at least a beginning. And so Ishvara Dharana iti panchangulimayah niyamo nama satkarah. Niyamaha means, this is first one was yama, and these 5 fingers are called niyama. Okay, now my hands have had a makeover. So what do I do now with these new hands? They've had a makeover. Well, that is what is talked about in the next verse. सम्पुटीकृत्य हस्तौ द्वौ मुनिर्नियम संयमौ सम्पुटीकृत्य हस्तौ द्वौ मुनिर्नियम संयमौ ब्रह्मस्तुतिमयं साक्षात् ब्रह्मयज्ञं समाचरेत् ब्रह्मस्तुतिमयं साक्षात् ब्रह्मयज्ञं समाचरेत्. So, what to do with these new fingers of Yama and Niyama? Bring them together. This is called Samputi Karanam. Samputi Kritya, joining them together. This is a universal prayer pose. Universal prayer pose. I think it must have come from Vedas only. This concept of Namaste, an enacted symbol of Namaste. When this COVID broke out in India, then there was lockdowns and everything. And after that, slowly, the temples, churches, mosques and all, little bit, they opened to let people in. And there was a circular from the Catholic Archbishop for India. And then what did the circular say? We should, in the light of the fact that COVID is all over the place and it is not safe to be in close quarters, we should adopt the Hindu way of greeting each other after the services. It was so nice, And so instead of hugging, which they perhaps normally do, they also reverted for some time to from far away saying namaste. Very pandemic safe greeting. You just do namaste. You can be 6 feet away or 10 feet away. Doesn't matter. You can do namaste. It is just a profound greeting. And so here, do namaste. Namaha te. And that te can vary. Te can mean you who annoy me. Te can mean you whose face I don't want to see. Te can mean all this, all of you who are coming in my way of my goals, my ambitions, my desires. You can mean the stars. Namahate. Shanishcharaya namaha. And then, so namahate, 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 namahate. And then, so this you can be anything. You can range from a small annoying mosquito who is keeping on biting me to the stars themselves. Yeah, so namaha means here I give up. Now this is one stage before akartritvam, before understanding that one is not the doer. Otherwise, the hands are all over the place. A finger in every pie. But here, the fingers are all together. This is one step before non doing, non duality. Discovering oneself as not the agent of action because the hands are right in front of you. The organs of actions are right in front of you. Stilled, together. And also it is a kind of a, it is so that and then as an enacted symbol, this namaste represents the coming together of various different diverse things and then transcending the duality in all of them. You see, this hand is different from this hand. The dominant hand is bigger and stronger slightly than the non-dominant hand. And the fingers all don't look the same even in one hand. The fingerprints are all different. The sizes are different. The thumb, which is so fat and funny, doesn't look like the other fingers. Everything is different. Yet I bring it all together. It's not that the differences are subsumed, they are transcended. I go straight to that oneness because of whose unchanging presence all the differences are upkept. In fact, they thrive and they are not a threat to me. This is namaste, really. And so here samputi kritya hastau dvau. So these two to come together. And then what? Then this is also a prayer position. You are ready to start prayer. When you stand like this, a prayer is about to come forth. That is the idea. And so you're ready to start the prayer. And what is this prayer here? Brahma Yajnam. Brahma Yajnam Samacharet. Samacharet may one perform what is called the prayer in the form of Brahma Yajna. Brahma Yajna means uh, Yajna for which the subject matter is Brahman. But yajna here means worship. How to worship Brahman? First of all, I should go to the market and get a murti. Murti means an icon representing Brahman. What will that be? Nothing. Because it resists representation, being formless, nameless. And then it is not a thing. And it is not other than you. So therefore, so that means I worship myself, not the self that is asking this question. You certainly don't worship, okay? Because that question is coming from the ahankara. That is not what is worshipped. What is worshipped is the message of the Upanishads that what this Ishvara is non-separate from myself alone. Soham bhavena pujayet. May one worship from the attitude of I am that alone which I worship and I'm yet to discover that. This is what the thing is. So he's going to describe Brahma Yajna. So the next verse we can skip, the fourth verse we can skip, and we'll go to the next one. वेदशास्त्रपुराणेषु यद्यत्पुण्यफलं स्मृतं वेदशास्त्रपुराणेषु यद्यत्पुण्यफलं स्मृतं सर्वस्मादपि सम्प्रोक्तं ब्रह्मयज्ञफलं महत् सर्वस्मादपि सम्प्रोक्तं ब्रह्मयज्ञफलं महत्. In the Vedas, in the Shastras, and in the Puranas, Proktam, Smritam. Smritam means that which is talked about. What? The Punya Phalas. Punya Phala means there is something called Phalashruti. And it is there at the end of all the stotras. Shiva lokamavapnoti, Shivena saha modate. This is one such Phalashruti. Panchaksharam, yadi yaf pathet. like this. So if one chants the Panchakshari Stotra, Shiva Panchakshara Stotra, very beautiful it is, because it says Nama Shivaya. This is five syllable mantra, and so the first line, the first verse is full of words starting with na, and then ma, and then like this. So it's very, very alliterative and nice. So then that the at the end there is phalashruti, because the phalashruti means the enlisting of the benefits of chanting this praise song. What will happen if I chant this? Why should you know what will happen? Because after all, the human mind wants instant results, or wants some kind of promised results. I need to know what will happen. Otherwise, why will I undertake this anusthana? Anusthana means some kind of a committed practice. So why should I undertake this if I don't know what's happening? So the promise is given in the last verse, usually an interpolation later on by some other scholar, and there it says, Shivalokam avapnoti. Apnoti, gains. Avapnoti, gains for sure, certainly gains. Gains what? Shivalokam. Goes to Shiva. When? Of course, after death is talked about here. This is for the person. Shivena saha modate. Has a cup of chai with Shiva. Oh, that's what modate means? Pretty much. And so modate means rejoices with Shiva and dances around with Shiva. And says, can you please teach me a few steps of the Tandava, and then dances along with Shiva. So this is, this is given for the lay people, for the newly minted bhaktas to continue doing this, because it seems like a nice picture. Oh, I'll be with Shiva always. Oh, how nice, how wonderful. But then they don't understand that you are already with Shiva even now, as you're longing to be with Shiva after the dropping of the body. In fact, you are one with Shiva even now. And so, but that's why I said it is for the people who are just struggling, who are just wanting to chant this and get some results. So here he says, in the Vedas, in the Shastras, in the Puranas, all kinds of phalas are given. If you do this, you will get great wealth. Ganapati Atharva Shirsha, what is that called? Upanishad. If you chant, you will get great wealth if you chant it. And then this is the first example of a chain letter. Remember chain letter? It comes, in the email, and it comes now in the text form also. Pass it to five other people and see what happens. And then, and here you are just trying to get through the day. Where do you have the time to pass it to five other people? And then, of course, if you still want to retain your friends, you're not going to do any such thing of passing it to five other people. Then I was wondering, where did this chain letter idea come from? It has come from the Veda only. The Ganapati Atharvashirsha Upanishad brazenly says, if you write the whole Upanishad and then give it to eight people, who then give it again to eight people, who then give it again to eight people, you will live like a king. Some kind of a, what is that, multi step, some kind of a, what is that called, pyramid investment type scheme, pyramid punya investment. Okay. And this, so it brazenly says, if you write it and give it to eight people, and then they also, you tell them to write it and give it to eight people, wait and see what happens. You'll have so much Aishwarya, you'll have so much. And then the results, for example, of not just puja but yajna, like Somayaga. Somayaga means, oh my God, that is just, a ticket to heaven. And then Agnihotra. And Agnihotra also gives a very comfortable stay in this and other lives. Ashwamedha Yaga gives you some kind of a unrivaled kingdom. All these things are there. And then, so when we look into all the phalas of the punya, of the good merits, the results of meritorious actions, which are close to dharma, if we start enlisting them, it says the mahat, greater than all of them, is the meritorious results of what he calls Brahma Yajna. Brahma Yajna. Very, very interesting. What is this Brahma Yajna? We'll have to wait and see, and that will be fun. And then, so we'll stop here. Janani, please share the flyer for the Yajna. And then the next class, we will have 9 to 9, 16th, 20, 30th. 30th of April will be the next class. Okay. Yeah. So then there is a flyer in the chat box you can download if you haven't done it already, and then you can participate if you would like. All right. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you.